this little piece of forsaken ground in Fort Worth is actually Barron Field, one of 3 World War I fighter training centers in the Fort Worth area. Number 2 was built on this site in 1917. So the World War I airplanes were trained on this site. There's supposed to be a structure here somewhere that's still remaining, but at the time of the historical marker. But they trained a lot of Canadian pilots. Canadian pilots came down to train our pilots, probably on the request of General Pershing, and they came down here to train our pilots. There was a Canadian crew. One of the Canadians was actually a famous dancer in Canada, and he had a monkey that would ride on his airplane with him. And so, and unfortunately, one time in a training accident with a new trainee who probably overcorrected his airplane or did something wrong, he ended up crashing and dying. He was killed, and his monkey, and they were buried here near, and I think a Greenville cemetery, and later they were moved up to Canada. Those the graves were. But anyway, so that was a kind of a sad episode of those wartime things. But other things that happened, it was first used by Canadian cadets. It was occupied in April 1918 by American military units. It was actually called Taliaferro Field, number 2. The facility was renamed Barron Field for Cadet Robert J. Barron. That's what happened, who was killed at another flying school. So Mr. Barron was killed. That's why they named it Barron Field. Okay. It covered 600 acres. So this isn't 600 acres, much less. So a lot of this land that's now built up with industrial things, perhaps this place behind me here, were part of that Barron Field. It was 600 acres, well out of town, I'm sure, at the time. The camp housed 150 officers and 900 enlisted men. It sent 6 air squadrons to France before the war ended, November 11, 1918. The training facility closed in 1924, and today only the munitions building remains. I'll look see if I can find that munitions building in a minute. I don't see it. There's no munitions building that I saw. But anyway, and so closing in 1924, it might have crossed paths with the helium dirigibles that were docking up north of Fort Worth on the north side by Meacham Field. There was a bunch that were that field was a dirigible place in the 1920s also. So this base might have closed about the time the dirigibles were still going or coming around. But anyway, this is Barron Field, where 1914, 1917, 1918, World War I pilots were trained here near in the Fort Worth area.